This happened a few years ago. I was 32 at the time. Just a history teacher looking to unwind. I planned a camping trip with some friends to escape the stress of work. We found a quiet spot in the woods, surrounded by tall pines and a beautiful lake. We expected a peaceful weekend away, far from daily noise. I've never been able to shake what happened. On the first night, we sat around the campfire. We were laughing and sharing stories. I didn't realize how late it was until I looked around. My friends had drifted off to their tents, leaving just me awake. Then I heard it. A faint sound like footsteps crunching through dry leaves. Maybe it was an animal. I shrugged it off, settled by the fire, and tried to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. By the second night, everything felt off. I was trying to sleep, but I felt like someone was watching us. Whispers floated through the trees. I couldn't make out the words, but they kept me wide awake. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind or my imagination. Deep down, I knew something wasn't right. My heart raced every time I heard a branch crack outside. Later that night, while sitting with my friends around the fire, I spotted a figure darting between trees. I blinked, squinting into the darkness, but couldn't see it clearly. Just shadows moving. I wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Maybe I was just tired. I brushed it off and laughed at my nerves. The next morning began with one of my friends running back to camp, looking pale. He said he found something in the woods, a weathered old locket that none of us recognized. When he showed it to me, chills ran down my spine. It didn't belong to any of us. We hadn't seen anyone else around. It felt like tension filled the air. We were miles away from the nearest cabin or road. That night, I kept my flashlight on, scanning the darkness. My heart was pounding in my chest. I thought I heard someone say my name, soft and distant. I turned to my friends, but they were all asleep. Cold sweat dripped down my back. I wanted to leave right then, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. As the trip ended, I questioned every little thing that happened. Were we being watched, or were our minds playing tricks on us? We joked about it, but deep down, I think we all felt something lurking in the trees, waiting for us to leave. Now, every time I think back to that weekend, I wonder if we crossed paths with something real. Something just beyond our understanding. Just because I can't explain it doesn't mean it didn't happen. What if we weren't alone? I can't get those nights out of my head. I still feel nervous when I hear the wind rustle through the trees. After we got back from the trip, life returned to normal. I resumed teaching history, buried myself in lesson plans, and tried to forget that creepy weekend. But it haunted me. The laughs we shared, and the locket still felt like characters in a shadow play that I couldn't shake off. Weeks later, I met with my friends for drinks. I thought it would help to talk about the camping trip. But as soon as I mentioned it, an uncomfortable silence followed. It wasn't just the locket that bothered me. I could see it in their eyes. They felt it too. That weird tension had seeped into our memories like fog through a forest. I can't stop thinking about that night, I confessed, taking a sip of my drink. We should have left when we had the chance. One of my friends, Jenna, spoke up hesitantly. Did you have that dream? The one where we were running? I froze. I had. In my dream, we were running through the woods, but I never knew what we were running from. Just shadows that closed in, thick and dark. It felt so real, I admitted. I thought it was just stress from work. But now, I'm not so sure. The rest exchanged troubled looks. Then Adam added, You know, I've been hearing strange noises outside my house since we got back. Like whispers, right near my window. His brow furrowed. I can't explain it. Suddenly, it felt like the air turned cold, like the memories had grabbed onto our throats. I thought I was the only one hearing things, I said. I can't help but think it's connected to what we found. When we left the bar, I felt restless. Something was pushing me to revisit the site. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe I wanted answers. There's only so long you can ignore nagging feelings. I called up Jenna and Adam, both hesitant but eventually agreed to make the drive back. The sun was setting when we arrived. The woods looked different in the light, less ominous but heavy with tension. The air felt thicker, charged with something unspoken as we unloaded our gear. As we set up camp, a familiar chill washed over me. I felt that same sensation of being watched. I scanned the trees, but everything appeared still. Probably just nerves, I told myself. After tucking in for the night, I couldn't sleep. I leaned against my tent, listening to the rustle of leaves. And then I heard it. Whispers drifting through the trees like smoke. They blended into one another, unfamiliar, haunting. I wanted to yell for my friends, but my throat felt constricted. Suddenly, my flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. Panicking, I crawled out of my tent. That's when I saw it, a fleeting shadow darting between the trees. I knew it wasn't my imagination. I called out, my voice trembling, "Guys, are you there?" But then, everything went silent. Even the wind stopped. Fear gripped me, but there was no turning back. I had to find out what was out there. I could almost feel it pulling me in, waiting for me to follow. I stepped cautiously into the trees, the ground cold beneath my bare feet. The whispers grew louder, weaving around me like a net of sound. They seemed to emerge from all directions, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. My breath quickened, and I felt the urge to bolt back to my tent, but my legs wouldn't move. Faint moonlight broke through the canopy, casting eerie shapes on the ground. Just as I gathered my courage, I noticed a glint near a cluster of bushes. Something was shimmering there. I took a tentative step closer, my heart racing. When I reached the bushes, I gasped. It was the locket, the one we had found during our last trip. It was half buried in the dirt, entwined in root strands as if it had been feeding off the earth itself. I scrambled to lift it, and chills ran up my spine. It felt cold and damp in my hand. "Guys! I found it!" I shouted, hoping they would hear me. I turned back toward camp, but realized the path was shrouded in shadows. Panic washed over me as I spun around, searching for them. "Jenna? Adam?" Nothing but silence. The woods felt alive now, closing in around me. I clutched the locket tightly, feeling its weight. I had to get back where it was safe. I scurried in the direction I thought was camp, but the trees loomed like sentinels, their branches stretching menacingly toward me. Suddenly the air shifted, and I heard something. Guttural laughter echoing through the trees. It was haunting and unnatural. I froze, rooted to the spot. The laughter stopped, replaced by something that sounded like footsteps, crunching through twigs nearby. "Please, please," I muttered, starting to back away slowly. I needed to find my friends. I needed to remember how to breathe. Then I heard it again. "Help!" a voice cried, distant yet familiar. It was Jenna. My heart skipped a beat as I raced toward the sound, fueled by instinct. I pushed through the branches, fear lending me speed. I broke into a small clearing. There she was, sitting against a tree, wide-eyed and trembling. "What happened?" I gasped, reaching her. I didn't know where to go," she stammered, trembling. "Adam called out for us, but then it just went quiet." A shadow shifted in the corner of my vision, just on the edge of the clearing, drawing my attention. I turned, but it was gone. "We should go back to the tents now," I urged, panic lacing my words. But before we could move, the laughter returned, louder now, echoing around us. It was closer, and the shadows thickened. Jenna looked terrified. "What is it?" "I don't know," I whispered, my heart hammering. "But we need to stick together." Just then, a figure emerged from the trees. A man, clothes tattered and eyes wild. I took a step back, but before I could react, the whispers surged around us, drowning out my thoughts. "That's him!" Jenna gasped, pointing. I looked from the shadowy figure to the locket in my hand, its surface gleaming ominously. Suddenly, everything went dark. I felt an unnatural stillness envelop me. And then, just as sudden as darkness had taken over, a blinding light flickered to life. My eyes struggled to adjust, and I squinted against the glare. I found myself standing in the same clearing, but everything felt different. The silhouette of the man stood before us, his features now illuminated in the harsh light. He looked even more disheveled up close, long, unkempt hair, and a grimy face etched with lines of worry. "What did you bring?" he rasped, his voice carrying an urgency that sent shivers racing down my spine. I instinctively tightened my grip on the locket. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to mask my fear with bravado. His eyes darted to the locket. You don't know what you're holding. It's a key. A key to what? Jenna asked, equal parts confusion and fear. Something you shouldn't have disturbed, he said, moving closer. My pulse raced, and I stepped back, pulling Jenna with me. The laughter echoed again, this time surrounding us. It wasn't just one voice. It was many, overlapping and mocking. I felt the air grow colder. We need to get out of here, I shouted, glancing toward the trees, anxious to find a way back. Then, as if triggered by my words, the forest seemed to shift. The trees creaked and groaned, the shadows deepening. It felt as if the woods were alive, watching us. You can't leave, the man said, his eyes frantic. It'll come for you. Who will? I asked, breathless. The one you disturbed, he replied, pointing a shaking finger at the locket. It was meant to stay buried. The laughter continued, mingling with the whispers, creating a cacophony that drowned out my thoughts. I glanced at Jenna, who looked equally lost and terrified. Why should we believe you? I challenged, searching for a way out. Because I once tried to take it. I thought I could control it. But it's stronger than you think, he said, his voice cracking. Suddenly a gust of wind swirled around us, and the shadows seemed to draw closer, like living tendrils. I felt the weight of the locket in my palm. Was it pulling me in? I turned to Jenna. What do we do? I don't know, she whispered, her eyes wide. Run! I yelled without thinking, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the edge of the clearing. We sprinted past the wild man, who just stood there, staring at us as if he knew something we didn't. Just as we reached the tree line, I heard the man's cry. It's coming! The trees trembled as we stumbled out of the clearing, the laughter turning into an ear-piercing screech. I glanced back, but the clearing was empty. Nothing but shadows greeted me, and the whispers faded into the night. We kept running, branches slapping against our faces. The cold air filled my lungs, and my heart hammered in terror. I had to get us to safety. Then, just as I thought we could escape, I felt something brush past my shoulder. I dared not look back, but the chilling sensation lingered. We made it to the tents. Breathless, we collapsed beside them, our hearts racing. I didn't know if we were truly safe. But as I glanced at the locket still clutched in my hand, I realized the worst was yet to come. I pressed my back against the cool tent fabric, desperate to steady my racing heart. The darkness outside felt so alive. The shadows danced in the flickering lantern light, and for a moment, I could have sworn I saw something moving. Jenna sat beside me, her face pale and wide-eyed. What just happened? She whispered, breaking the silence. I don't know. But that man seemed terrified, I replied, my fingers still curled tightly around the locket. I could feel its cold metal against my palm, like it was somehow pulsing with a life of its own. He said we disturbed something. What do you think he meant? Jenna's voice trembled. He has to be crazy. There's no way this is real, I said. But deep down, doubt nagged at me. The laughter, that blending of voices, haunted me. What had we really stumbled upon in that clearing? I glanced at the tent entrance, half expecting the wild man or something worse to push its way in. Let's just keep quiet, I suggested. Maybe whatever that was will just go away. But even as I said it, I heard the distant rustles of leaves, a soft whisper out in the dark. I held my breath, straining to hear. The woods seemed to echo with muffled voices, indistinct, but unsettling. Did you hear that? Jenna asked, her eyes darting towards the opening. Yeah, I swallowed hard. It's probably just an animal. But fear crawled up my spine. That frantic man's words echoed in my mind. It'll come for you. We waited, tension growing heavier between us. Minutes felt like hours. I considered the locket again. Maybe I should just toss it away. But where? And would that even help? Suddenly, the app on my phone buzzed to life, illuminating the tent for a brief moment. A text from my mom. Need to know if you're okay. It's strange out there. My heart sank as I thought of our isolation, miles from home. "Should I call her?" Jenna said, her voice low. "No," I replied quickly. "We can't let anyone know we're scared. It'll just worry them more." But would it really make a difference? Suddenly the laughter returned. Clearer this time. It floated in from outside, hanging in the air like a dark cloud. My heart raced again, and I pushed myself against the wall of the tent, trying to make myself as small as possible. Then everything went silent. The laughter ceased, leaving only an unnerving stillness. "What was that?" Jenna asked, her eyes wide. "I don't know," I croaked, adrenaline coursing through me. And then, just as I began to feel relief, I heard a soft rustling near the tent. "Do you think it's an animal?" Jenna barely whispered. "I don't know," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. I felt the locket warm against my skin, almost like a warning. When the rustling got louder, my instincts kicked in. I slowly unzipped the tent flap, not knowing what I would see. I braced myself, my breath held tight in my chest, and then everything changed. A shadow heavier and darker than the rest loomed just outside. The moment our eyes met, I understood. It wasn't over yet. That's when I saw it. The figure moved closer, revealing more of itself in the eerie light. It was tall and gaunt, with unkempt hair that draped over its face. I could barely make out its features, but a twisted smile seemed carved into its skin. What are you?" I barely managed to get the words out. It didn't answer. Instead, it tilted its head, almost curiously, as if waiting for us to make a move. I could feel Jenna beside me, her breathing rapid and shallow. Every instinct in me screamed to close the flap and hide, but I was frozen in place. The laughter returned, echoing around us. It was close, too close, engulfing the darkness like a thick fog. I shot a glance at Jenna, and her eyes reflected the same terror I felt inside. "We should go," I urged, my voice trembling. Without thinking, I pulled the flap open wider and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like a slap, but I didn't care. My legs pushed me forward, away from the tent, away from the shadow. "Wait!" Jenna called, but I couldn't stop. I ran toward the trees, the ground uneven beneath my feet. The laughter followed, mixing with the rustling branches, as if the entire forest was laughing along. My heart raced, but I couldn't let fear debilitate me. I could hear Jenna scrambling behind me. "What are you doing? Come back!" she shouted. I didn't know if I could face whatever that thing was, but I knew I couldn't stay put. Then I caught sight of something ahead. A small clearing, illuminated by a faint glow. I pushed through the brush, breaking into the opening. It was strange. Small, flickering lights floated in the air like fireflies, but they pulsed too irregularly to be natural. My brain struggled to make sense of it. "That's not normal," Jenna panted as she caught up to me, her face pale and shadowed by fear. "We should go back. We need to—" The laughter grew louder, darting around us like an unwelcome chill. I turned to Jenna, seeing her fear reflected in my own eyes. "We can't go back there," I yelled. "Not with that thing." Before Jenna could respond, one of the glowing lights drifted closer. It was almost mesmerizing, like a beacon in the dark. I reached out instinctively, but Jenna's hand snatched my wrist. "Don't touch it," she warned, her voice urgent. But it was too late. As I hesitated, the light flickered violently, and a wave of cold washed over me. Suddenly the clearing dimmed, shadows swirling around us. I felt a pull, as if the ground was inviting me to sink into its depths. "Run!" I shouted, and we both bolted back into the trees. The laughter followed, wrapping around us like chains. I could hear it whispering now, seemingly echoing from every direction. "You've disturbed us," it chanted softly, making my breath hitch. We stumbled through the unfamiliar woods. Panic surged, but I couldn't afford to think about it. I had an urgent need to escape, driven by some primal instinct. "Where do we go?" Jenna gasped, looking around frantically. "Just keep moving," I urged, my heart pounding relentlessly. But then we reached an unexpected sight. A stone altar jutted out from the underbrush, a relic of something ancient. Symbols carved deep into the rock pulsated in rhythm with the laughter. Standing there, I felt an undeniable sense of foreboding. This was the source of it all. As we stood frozen in place, I knew we had only just begun to unravel what lay ahead. I couldn't shake the feeling that the altar was watching us, its cold stone facade radiating an energy that stirred both fear and curiosity within me. Jenna's grip on my arm tightened. "What is this place?" she whispered, an edge of panic in her voice. Before I could respond, the laughter surged again, louder than ever, echoing off the trees. "We have awakened something," I muttered. The laughter morphed into words that seemed to swirl around us, choking the air. "Stay. Join us." Jenna's eyes widened. "We need to get out of here," she shouted, her voice raw with urgency. I nodded, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, like the altar was holding me captive. Suddenly, one of the symbols on the stone flashed, then another. The lights flickered violently, and the laughter intensified to a frantic cackle. "They're angry," I murmured, my voice barely audible amidst the chaos. Just then, from the corner of my eye, I spotted movement at the edge of the clearing. A figure emerged, cloaked in shadow. It was the same tall, gaunt figure we'd seen before. Its smile twisted wider, a grotesque caricature in the dark. I felt my blood run cold. "Don't look at it!" Jenna screamed, pulling at my wrist. I tore my gaze away from the creature, but the laughter morphed again, shifting into a desperate whine that echoed through the air. "Stay. Play." The altar's pulsating symbols cast a dim light over the clearing, revealing the chaos looming closer. I could hear Jenna sobbing softly beside me. "What do we do?" she begged, panic rising in her voice. "Back away slowly," I suggested, my mind racing. Every instinct told me that the altar was central to whatever was happening. It might not want us to leave. As we began to retreat, the figure stepped closer, its elongated limbs stretching impossibly. Everything inside me screamed to run, but I couldn't afford to panic. Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the trees. Startled, I turned my head toward the noise, spotting a reflection of light through the thicket. There wasn't supposed to be anything in the woods but us. "Did you hear that?" I asked Jenna, fear creeping back in. She nodded slowly, her delicate features stark against the shadows. "Maybe it's someone else out here," she suggested, hope fluttering in her voice. But I sensed that wasn't it. It wasn't long before the laughter turned into a low hum, and the shadows began to blend together, forming an inseparable mass that moved toward us. I felt my heart thudding in my throat. "Jenna, we need to go now." We turned to run, bolting back into the woods, branches clawing at us as we dodged the trees. The darkness thickened around us, swallowing everything in sight. But then I heard it. A low growl, just behind us, primal and menacing. Something was following us. "Keep going!" I yelled over my shoulder, terror fueling my legs. But each footfall felt like a descent into a nightmare. Through the murk, I noticed a path up ahead, faintly illuminated, leading us deeper into the woods. I could only hope it would take us away from whatever haunted us. Then, a sudden silence settled. No laughter, no whispers. Just an eerie quiet that pressed against us like a weight. I dared to glance back. The figure was gone, but the shadows remained. "Did we lose it?" Jenna panted, glancing around wildly. "I don't know," I answered breathlessly, my throat dry with fear. But before I could say more, a sharp flare of light erupted from the altar, illuminating everything around us. In that moment, I saw the figures, dozens of them, emerging from the trees, eyes glinting in the sudden glow. They weren't just shadows, they were very real, and they were hungry. "Run!" I screamed, pulling Jenna with me as we plunged back into the darkness. We had unleashed something far worse than I could have imagined, and now we were prey. The moment we took off into the woods, I could feel the adrenaline surging through me, yet panic clawed at my insides. Jenna kept pace beside me, her breaths coming in sharp gasps. We dashed through the underbrush, branches snapping like gunfire around us. My thoughts raced as I frantically tried to come up with a plan, but all I could think of was that strange altar and the figures closing in around us. "Where do we go now?" Jenna shouted, her voice filled with urgency as we ran the narrow trail. "Just keep moving," I yelled back. I squinted ahead, trying to catch the glimmers of moonlight that filtered through the tree canopy. The light offered little comfort. I didn't want to stop to think, because every time I did, the weight on my chest just grew heavier. Suddenly, I heard a rustling sound behind us. Panic shot through me, and I dared a glance over my shoulder. The figures were gaining on us, their forms shifting and rippling like the shadows themselves. "We have to get to the road!" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. I wrenched my head back around. But then I saw it. A flicker of light cutting through the darkness ahead. Was it another path? Or some kind of escape route? I pointed it out to Jenna, who nodded, understanding my unspoken message. In a burst of speed, we veered toward the light. As we ran, I could hear the growls behind us, closer, more insistent now. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like it would burst. The light grew brighter, revealing an old cabin nestled between the trees. Its windows, clouded with grime, flickered with a soft, warm glow. "There!" I shouted. "We can hide in there!" Jenna was right behind me as we sprinted toward the cabin. The door creaked open just as we got there, as if inviting us in. I peered inside, but the interior was shrouded in shadows. "We have to go!" she urged, tugging at my sleeve, but something pulled me back. "Wait," I whispered, hesitating on the threshold. "What if it's not safe?" "We don't have a choice." Her voice trembled with fear. The growling resumed, louder now. With one last glance back, I stepped inside the cabin, dragging Jenna with me. As soon as we crossed the threshold, the door swung closed behind us with a deafening thud. Darkness enveloped us, and all I could hear was Jenna's ragged breathing. "Do you think it's safe?" she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I said. I took a few steps forward, my eyes adjusting to the dimness. The flickering light came from a single candle on an old wooden table. Around the table were scattered items: old newspapers, empty bottles, and something that looked like an animal bone. "What's this place?" Jenna asked, her voice shaking. Before I could reply, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed outside. Heavy, dragging steps, just beyond the walls. "They're here," I breathed, panic rising once more. Just then, I felt something touch my shoulder. My breath caught in my throat. I turned slowly, my heart racing. It was just the cold draft, but it sent a chill racing down my spine. That light. "It's coming from under the floorboards," Jenna whispered, pointing to a small crack near the edge of the room. "That doesn't make sense," I muttered, closing the distance cautiously. "What could be down there?" But before I could lift the floorboard, the sound of scratching intensified, just outside the cabin door. My instincts kicked in. "We can't stay here," I said urgently. "We need to look underneath." As I crouched down, ready to pull the board away, a loud bang echoed from the door, threatening to burst open. I knew then that whatever had been released that night was no longer content hiding in the shadows. Then, everything went dark. I jolted awake, heart racing and senses on high alert. The darkness felt thick, pressing down on me. I blinked, itching to see something, anything, but I was swallowed whole by the shadowy cabin. Panic surged again, and I scrambled to my feet. "Jenna?" I whispered, my voice shaky. There was no response. I reached out into the blackness, trying to find her. "Where are you?" Nothing. The cabin was silent except for the rhythmic pulsing of my heartbeat in my ears. I took a deep breath, pushing down the chaos in my mind, forcing myself to focus. I needed to find Jenna and figure out what to do. I fumbled along the wall, searching for a door or window. The air was stale, filled with the scent of old wood and something acrid. My fingertips grazed over rough-hewn boards, and I moved cautiously. The floor creaked beneath me, each sound echoing like a scream in the vacuum of night. Then, I heard it. A muffled voice, barely above a whisper. "Over here!" I darted in the direction of her voice. "Jenna?" I called, feeling a surge of relief and fear. What happened after the darkness engulfed us? "I'm in the corner," she replied, her voice trembling. I finally reached her, and I could barely make out her shape against the wall. I felt her quaking frame as I grabbed hold of her arm. "I thought you were gone." "I thought you were too," she replied, visibly shaken. "What happened?" "The lights." I shook my head. "There were noises outside. Now it's all gone quiet." I was still reeling from the darkness, and it was hard to think. Jenna took a deep breath. "Look," she pointed to the floor near us. "That crack is wider now. It looks like it's glowing." I knelt down, my heart racing at the thought of what might be down there. I reached for the floorboard and tugged it loose. It creaked loudly as I pulled it away, revealing a narrow gap that pulsed with a strange light. That's when I saw it, a twisted ribbon of light worming through the space. "What is this?" I breathed, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. "I don't know. But it's moving," Jenna responded, her voice low with wonder and fear. Before I could answer, a chilling breeze swept into the cabin, and the air turned icy. A sudden thud echoed from the door, rattling the frame. My instinct was to slam the board back in place, but the glowing light enveloping us seemed to beckon, whispering secrets I couldn't quite understand. "Do you think it's safe?" I asked, staring into the glowing abyss. "I don't think we have a choice," Jenna said. "They'll get in here soon." With a surge of determination, I reached back into the gap and pulled the lighter, glowing object closer. It felt warm in my hands as if it held a heartbeat. Suddenly, the door crashed open, and the darkness outside spilled into the cabin like a flood. I froze, everything inside me screaming to run. But I couldn't move. Everything was shifting, the air thickening, the glow intensifying. And just like that, it surged higher, illuminating the cabin. "What is happening?" Jenna screamed. I felt fear roaring in my chest. "I don't know, but we need to go." The door swung wide and a figure appeared, shrouded in dark shapes. I couldn't process what I saw. Was it one of them? Then, without warning, the figure lunged forward, and the light exploded. I don't remember much after that blinding flash. It felt like being yanked from one reality to another, the world splitting apart in a cacophony of light and sound. I gasped, bracing myself for impact, but the moment of chaos faded just as swiftly as it appeared. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was the quiet. The oppressive weight that had clung to me vanished. I was lying on the ground, staring up at a clear blue sky drenched in sunlight. A gentle breeze ruffled the leaves overhead. As I sat up slowly, a wave of disorientation washed over me. Where was Jenna? The cabin was gone. I was outside, back in the woods, but it looked entirely different. Sunlight streamed through the branches, illuminating a serene forest scene. But instinctively I knew something wasn't right. My heart pounded against my ribcage. I could still feel the heat of the locket in my pocket. Now a dull weight as if infused with a lingering chill. I pushed myself to my feet. The world felt surreal, as if I had fallen into an odd dream, a momentary escape from the chaos. But there were no signs of the altar, no shadowy figures, just the soft rustle of the wind and the chirping of birds. "Jenna?" I called, my voice shaky. Silence stretched around me. I felt the panic rising again but forced myself to breathe. Maybe she was nearby, lost, but safe. As I took a few hesitant steps, the faint sound of footsteps echoed in the underbrush. My heart raced. I turned, half expecting to find Jenna breaking through the trees, relief flooding through me, but instead, it was just shadows dancing as the wind swayed the branches. Minutes felt like hours as I paced in a circle, anxiety gnawing at my insides. My mind spun with unanswered questions. Had we really escaped? Had that strange energy saved us, or was it merely a trick? What had we unleashed, if anything at all? Finally, I sank to the ground, resting my head in my hands. I still clutched the locket tightly, as if it might provide some sort of answer. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the trees in golden hues. I felt the shadows lengthen around me, a reminder of where I had just come from. With a sudden resolve, I stood up again. I needed to find a way out, find civilization, or at least a familiar path. Maybe Jenna had already made her way back. As I stumbled through the forest, I tried to remember my way back to where we had pitched camp initially. But all I found were memories of laughter twisted into whispers, reminders of shadows lurking just beyond my sight. I wandered for what felt like an eternity, fear settling in with the dusk. Just as uncertainty twisted my gut, I caught a glimpse of something ahead, a flicker of color. Planting my feet firmly, I edged closer. It was a campfire, crackling warmly. Relief bloomed in my chest. Perhaps I would find people who could help me find Jenna and escape this bewildering place. But as I approached, unease swept over me again. Shadows tossed and turned as figures moved around the fire, their laughter echoing into the night. "Anyone home?" I called tentatively, moving closer until I could make out the faces. A group of campers sat around the fire, looking up at me with wide eyes. "Who the hell are you?" one of them asked, his voice suspicious. I was camping nearby. I don't know what happened, but... And then the laughter came. Soft, insistent, familiar. All too familiar. My heart dropped as I recognized the blend of voices that had followed me through the chaos. Something flickered in the back of my mind. It twisted my gut with the knowledge I couldn't shake. Feeling suddenly very small, I took a wary step back. Had they all been drawn to the whispers too? The glow of the campfire illuminated the locket in my palm, glinting ominously. I still didn't know where Jenna was, or what the price for our intrusion had been. The woods felt like they were closing in again, and something far more unsettling shifted in the atmosphere. "Are you here to join us?" one of the figures asked, the smile stretching too wide. And that was when I realized I might have not escaped after all. The darkness had simply woven itself more deeply into our pursuits. I still think about that weekend sometimes, about the choices made in those woods. The locket stayed hidden in my drawer, a relic of something that feels both very real and unreal, a reminder of the line we crossed. I wonder if the others are still out there, just like me, forever shadowed by lingering whispers of a night that changed everything.